The sustainable agriculture movement is growing in Maine and around the world. Sustainable agriculture farming is different from conventional or industrial farming. It relies more on the farm's own resources and less on purchased inputs, especially nutrients and pest management agents. Sustainable agriculture farms produce a diversity of crops and animal products and generally sell more locally and more directly to consumers. Farming activities involve most family members, and farm families are in it for the quality of life more than the financial returns. The Maine Sustainable Agriculture Society and the University of Maine, with support from the Northeast Sustainable Agricultural Research and Education Program, or NESAIR, conducted in-depth interviews with 30 Maine farmers practicing sustainable agriculture to learn more about their operations. The following video segments are one outcome of that project. In the video, sustainable agriculture farmers talk about their farms and about sustainable agriculture in general. The interviews revealed three categories of sustainable agriculture farmers in Maine: the designer, who develops or designs an integrated system from the beginning; the evolver, who transitions or evolves a conventional farm to a sustainable agriculture farm; and the appender, who attaches or appends sustainable agriculture practices to their industrial farm. The videos are being shared with farm service providers as part of a discussion about sustainable agriculture. They are organized into 7 topics: starting from scratch, transitioning a conventional farm, financing sustainable agriculture farming, managing risks on sustainable farms, adding sustainable agriculture practices to industrial farms, designing and operating crop and livestock systems, and marketing from sustainable agriculture farms. Starting from scratch. Sustainable agriculture farmers give consistent advice for beginning farmers or designers. Start small, test your desire and ability before investing heavily. Grow from profits and off-farm income. Pay attention to marketing and learn on the job.
Well, one of the things that we did that isn't necessarily typical is that we started small and grew big. And that way, financing never became as much of an issue as it would have been starting up large. Since we were incremental in our growth, we never had to borrow money for operating expenses. And we raised our own cows and grew our own herd.
We also had outside income.
And the outside income made it so we could expand slowly and continuously. As far as starting small and getting bigger, I think it's a good way to figure out whether it's what you want to do.
If you don't have to take out a lot of money to do it either. I mean,
and it can be done as a part-time job until you make it achieve critical mass. And it's something that we definitely used to our advantage, was that for quite a while we both maintained off-farm income producing jobs. And then at one point or another we figured out, yep, we've got enough critical mass for one person to stay home full-time.
Do it if you're passionate about it, but understand where you're going a little bit. It's kind of like the same advice they give for having kids. Don't wait till you're ready, but know what you're jumping into. Work like hell, because that's really all there is. Don't wait to save up the money, because you'll never start. And then when you start small so you don't exceed your boundaries, and then grow into your production.
You start small and grow with your market and your own abilities to deal with the problems. I think a bigger problem is to start too large and try to do too many things. To have too many plates spinning at once is a real trick. You're better off to grow into it, and you may very well discover that you don't like it.
I think it's very important to evolve into it, almost the whole idea of evolution, where you need to start to do things by hand, almost tilling the soil by hand so you understand it before you start introducing machinery. If people start out with everything mechanized, then they really don't understand. Perhaps there'll be a problem with why it's not applicable to that, and they may not know what is the most basic aspect of the job.
Well, there's a learning curve going into anything
That's
new.
right.
And if you have a big wallet you'll just go through a lot more money on that learning curve, because there's no escaping. If you're
Your
on the lower
mistakes will
end
be
of the
bigger.
learning curve, the mistakes that you make will be expensive mistakes. But if you don't have much money to spend, then the expense will be minimal.
I don't know that starting small would be my advice, but starting with something that you can handle, not getting in over your head. You know, if you're a good people person and you can work with people so that you can hire staff, you know, run an operation that is big enough to support a small staff. When we started, Pebble worked off the farm as a bookkeeper. And then as the children came along, I had the opportunity to work off the farm as a field man in the dairy industry. And she stayed home for a while. And it's been on and off. You know, one of us has always had an off-the-farm job until last 2 years ago.
In the wintertime, I drive an oil truck, and when I was growing up, working off farm from a farmer's point of view was always considered a bad thing to do.
Like you're a failure if you couldn't support your entire family from what you do on the land.
But I did it because it gave us something to do in the wintertime. It generated some money, but I found in doing it, I think we've done it, this will be 12 or 13 years, it's interesting to look at a different set of problems, and you know, the management problems from managing an oil company. If you're there just as a worker, as an observer, you know, some of those concepts apply, and there again, it's just different to see somebody else's approach to similar problems.
I think I would first suggest maybe participating in a farmer's market. We do farmers markets from May till October, twice a week in 2 different communities. And that is a great way to try your hand at business, marketing, producing a product and selling it, and not having a lot of capital investment.
If you don't like to do it, you're never going to succeed in it, and not worry about the profit and the bottom line so much, and supply your own needs first. Because we've saved, I don't know how much money I didn't have to make by supplying our own needs first. I never risked anything financially because I didn't have any money, and I never borrowed any money. I did things with, you know, I operated on, I'd go to auctions and buy stuff that was 90% worn out and bring it home and fix it up till it was only 75% worn out, and, you know, use it a few years and wear it the rest of the way out and go get something else. Because I've never made any big capital investments.
What we've found over the years is that by developing a niche on our farm for certain products and developing that market slowly, not making large wholesale changes and then trying to find a market for them, but developing things incrementally.
One thing I know I would advise people who are thinking to get involved with something agriculturally is look at what's around you and look at what's under you. Look at the soil, look at the soil, and look at the soil again. And that's because soil is just as basic as it gets, but it's the key to everything.
And I think you have to look at your location. We couldn't do what we're doing today if we didn't have the location. And most people that like to farm, including myself, I'd like to be at a different location. But for what we're doing, we need the traffic, we need the road. And I don't think you can go back into the country a little bit and do what we're doing here.
Transitioning a conventional farm. A number of sustainable agriculture farmers started with a conventional farm. They had to find the right diversified system for them and then convert farm assets to their more diversified and complex farming system.
The farm started out as a potato farm, and we developed it over the years to quite a large size operation. We had about 450 acres of potatoes along with rotation crops. Got into broccoli, grains, peas, processing peas, and tried a little bit of cattle once. And it got to such a size, and it developed over the years, that Gloria and I became very uncomfortable with the management and the debt load that was required to maintain farming in the direction that we were going at. So we decided to, we sat down at the kitchen table one night and put a list of what we were happy with, what we were unhappy with, and we developed a farming operation that was going to cater to the local population and to Loring Air Force Base, which was about 6 miles away. So we decided to develop our family farm in that direction. And it was the decision to take it from that scale to what can we sell locally, what can we sell to the assets that we have in our immediate area where we can get the most dollar. It was that concept that was new to us, not trying new things. The concept of marketing in a different fashion is what we found to be the big change.
In the mid-'80s, we started a vegetable business that was sort of runs hand in hand with the dairy business to help with bringing in some more income, but we also had the manure for the fertilizer, and we had all the equipment, so it sort of worked pretty good. We're up to 140 cows milking now, and we have about 100 acres of vegetables that we run on. Our vegetable business consists of about 65 acres of sweet corn and 6 acres of cucumbers and 20 acres of pumpkins and winter squash and another 2-3 acres of miscellaneous stuff. Plus we have 7 greenhouses full of tomatoes. So what we found economically, we had to have the vegetable business to stay in the dairy business to furnish 3 families with an income. So I think this is where we're coming from on the sustainable agriculture here is in order to be existing, we have to do more than just milk cows in order to survive here on this farm.
And we were interested in raising crops, but we were more interested in direct marketing crops, selling them retail, trying to get more money for them. And then that's when Ramona went to Farmers Market for the first time, which was in '75. That was 25 years ago.
We were pulling a little trailer behind a Chevette. And I know a lot of people who come to market for the first time and set up next to our fairly large trucks. Wish they could, have a big truck like that, but it didn't happen overnight. And, if we could line up all our various vehicles and combinations that we've used over the years, there's a definite evolution that's gone on there. And our families have both been very supportive all the way. John's parents and my sisters worked with us all along, and my mother's here working at the farm all the time. A sister who has her own farm now worked with us for several years. Just has been a big group effort.
We started off simply with a herd of cows. And everything that we've added to the farm, we added, it complemented what we were doing. It didn't compete at all for the scarce resources of the time. We just kept doing that until we've got to where we are today. Everything complements one another. And I think that's our big plus right there.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions we get a lot is, how can you do everything that you're doing. And if you come to the farm and come into the store and you look at everything that we produce, it's rather overwhelming. But if you look at it in cycles, you know, we don't can 365 days out of the year. We don't grow vegetables year-round. We don't, I don't make goat cheese year-round. Everything has its season, and so in terms of, you're able to manage your time efficiently because, you know, when winter's done, the baskets, the weaving gets done, and that's puts on hold till the following year, and goats start kidding, you start making cheese, your markets start, and so it's never the same thing every day.
Yep. In the wintertime, we work in the woods and we cut and sell firewood, and we work in the shop and repair our machines and build machines to do our farming with in the springtime. So, you know, it's the cycle that Gloria was talking about. We've just, every day's a busy day.
My father took over this farm in, I think, 1953. It was at that time, a conventional dairy farm with like a one-sided tie-up, and they tore out the barn and filled in the cellar and cemented the barn, and then it burned. And from there, he went through the process of looking around and trying to find farms. We've been here 200 years, so he decided that, or roughly almost 200 years, so he decided he would stay here and capitalize upon what his ancestors had done for him. And he built a 40-cow tie-up, which was basically the way that the trend was in the 60s. And he started delivering milk door to door. And here we are 17 years later. I'd say that we do a vast amount of different things. We custom bale, we deliver our products on resale, we deliver milk, butter, eggs, ice cream. We sell firewood, we sell pulp, boltwood, logs. We do our own construction. We have registered cows. We sell dairy cows. We sell replacement heifers. We do all kinds of things.
So there were so many things that the cows went, and we kept increasing the roadside business that we felt we could handle, you know, without as much help and without as much investment.
Right. Our farm is a second-generation farm. We're in Dresden, Maine. It's Goranson Farm. I grew up on this farm. My parents came down from Aroostook County and farmed primarily potatoes for 35 years. We've transitioned it from a commercial potato production situation to a very diversified vegetable and berry operation. It's a remarkable evolution that our farm has gone through because it was primarily potatoes, but I really credit my mother and my father because they started harvesting potatoes in August, and there were people, you know, their winter supply of potatoes was dwindling or gone, and they would have potatoes available in August. And then they said, well, you know, my mother was selling a few tomatoes from her garden out by the road. And then they said, well, maybe we could grow more tomatoes. And then they had some sweet corn because the sweet corn would come in when the early potatoes came in. So they started that, a small amount of diversification. And that's what they were doing when I came back to the farm. And I started to go to a farmer's market, and I was known as the potato lady at the Damariscotta Farmer's Market.
Financing sustainable agriculture farming. Sustainable agriculture farmers are consistent in their views of financing needs and techniques. First, finance internally from earnings and rearranging assets. Second, minimize capital needs. Third, be alert to non-traditional capital sources. And fourth, build trust with your lenders.
We basically did it without
the support of the financial institutions. You know, we didn't go to the bank with this proposal and say we want to transition this farm from potatoes to a widely diversified truck farm. It didn't happen that way. We've done it little by little by little, and we've basically financed the transition ourselves. As we could afford the new pieces of machinery or fixed up old pieces of machinery was more the rule than buying something new. We did that, as it became clear that this particular piece of gear would make this crop a possibility for us, and it would impact on more than just that crop. Then we would make that investment, whether I would find it used, or in the case of the tine weeder, I sold a bunch of stuff that we weren't using, and which allowed me to buy this piece of equipment. And it's turned out very well. I'm tickled, absolutely tickled with the way it's performed. But so we didn't go to a bank. We did it as we could do it, kind of as we could afford it. And at the same time, we've survived. So we didn't put ourselves in a lot of debt, hoping that it would all come together.
But that's
because
why
there's so much learning to be done. That
15 years later.
to learn all that we've learned in the past 15 years in 1 or 2 growing seasons, because with a bank, over your head, so where's the money, guys? I don't know that we could have done it that way.
The land itself, we came here and creatively financed it for a couple of years while we had the family come together. The land is actually a family trust that belongs to our extended families, not just us, but our parents and our brothers and sisters. So we were able to get the land and stabilize it and take it beyond risk by doing that.
Money is always a problem on the farm, and but we was when we decided to start the store, the dairy industry, that was I believe the spring that milk went from $18 a hundred to $12, and we knew we had to do something else to stabilize our income, and our store had been operating in the kitchen and operating rather well, so we decided we was going to expand it just so we could operate a store a little more efficiently, but also so we could have some living space back. And we made a conscious effort to we sold some first calf, we sold some spring and heifers, and I worked in the woods for other people, and I cut some pine off my own land. So basically what we did was we traded some of our assets around to help develop the store, and that's one of the ways we financed that. And when you grow slowly and you grow basically out of profit, out of the profits that you make, that's a good way to finance what you're doing.
I think if I would have looked at the dollar things very much, it would have been too depressing, and I probably would have stopped, because my philosophy of farming has been that you do a good job, and you run your farm in a good ecological manner, and let the dollars fall where they can. You skimp and you save, and you don't spend. It's a lot easier to it's a lot easier thing to come up with methods to not spend money than it is to come up with methods to make money if you're on a farm like this. And I think figuring out how to not have to spend money is more important than figuring out how to save money or spend money.
It's basically survival. We do sit down in the wintertime and look at a budget of where we have to go, and projecting where the milk's going to be, and how much we have to raise vegetables to offset our whole business, and that's sort of where we've come in expanding. Is the milk prices haven't changed a lot, but everything else, all the bills seem to have gotten bigger, so we keep growing a little bit bigger with the vegetable business.
No, there's still sleepless nights. I don't want, I can't give that impression because we've kept our debt load low compared to the assets we have. Now, you still have to meet the payments of the debt load. And that's been the struggle that we've had is how do you meet, even though it's a small debt load, even though you've never signed a piece of paper borrowing money knowing that you could never pay it back, even though you know that everybody is well secured, you still have the obligation of making the payment. Now, when we started this whole deal, we were back into the area, well, if you could just bring in the interest. They really didn't care. I can remember that just as clear as a bell. Just bring in the interest. We'll just rewrite the note. Those days have gone.
If we got a spare nickel, we invested it back in the farm. And over the course of these years, all our investments have poured back into the business. And it is somewhat of a black hole, and as probably most farms are. The returns have probably been far below what we might have gotten in the stock market if we'd put in our money in that from the beginning. But to be here after 28 years, we feel that it was successful.
And we raised our kids here.
We've survived here, and
they went to college, and we've done okay.
We've been lucky to be able to find owner financing as well, because Carlton Fitzgerald was willing to take the risk as far as holding the note for us to buy this barn.
Some of the other landowners that we've dealt with have also taken an interest enough in what we're doing to believe that we could pay them off. And I think that's a key. I mean, your neighbors are going to sell you your land. And we started with a 65-acre piece. We're now way up over 350 and looking to expand further. And the only way you can convince people that without all the paraphernalia of a bank loan, your neighbors will sell you stuff if they believe in what you're doing, which they do in our case, which is lucky.
We look for resources around us, people that were willing to, if they weren't willing to lend us money to go get a job accomplished, they would lend us faith and goodwill. It's the way we got our first tractor, was by having the person that owned it was willing to finance us on the tractor for a number of years.
We got our financing originally and still have with Farmers Home Administration.